Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book from Pearson. This is Pearson Education Limited and it's on land law. It's in what's called the Blueprint series and I'll talk about that. They have a subtitle, Your Plan for Learning, and it's a new way of actually teaching the subject and a new way of actually learning the subject. And of course land law is really probably the most difficult of all the substantive law subjects that a student will have to deal with. This book has been written by Elliot Schatzberger. We'll have a look at the book first. It's in a print, PDF and eText format. My wife Elizabeth and I have given it a title, A Brilliant Modern Approach to the Study of English Land Law for the 21st Century Lawyer. And I think it's important to bear in mind that that's exactly what you're getting here with the Blueprint series. So if you've heard some of my other comments about the Blueprint series, you'll probably be hearing the same thing again to a certain extent because they follow a standard format. Let me show you the book first. It's a paperback. There it is. It's not a big book. There's the spine and then there's the back. You can see with it that it's actually very much in keeping with their structure for blueprints. There's the back inside page advertising some of their other products, and then there are the other blueprints at the front. Let me show you the book first of all though. You can see the mission statement from Pearson, then you've got the actual front page there, then you've got the brief contents, 4 parts which are set out, clearly covering an introduction, the Land Registration Act, co-ownership, estoppel easements, freehold mortgages and so forth. So you've got all of the very basic setup. That brief contents is there, then the more detailed contents are then looked at. Then you've got the table of cases, but you've got most of the stuff that you will be looking for, then statutes after that. Most of the stuff you'll be looking for examination purposes. Then do have a look at how to use the guide itself, because that's the way it's structured there. And it tells you how they set the scene, the cornerstone elements. I'll mention a little bit of that. What it is a blueprint, and what are they doing with this particular series. Then you get to the introduction, why study land law. And you've also got a nice little diagram as to what's actually in this book. Now I'm going to read very quickly and say land law has a reputation for being one of the most difficult core subjects. There's perhaps very good reason why the study of land law does not come along until year 2. There is a good reason, because obviously it is difficult. The author then goes on to say, my view though is that it is the language and terminology that cause problems early in the study of land law. Again, I would agree with that. He then goes on to talk about the level of awareness that you have to have, because you've got a lot of different terms. Now I have to say, he actually concludes, but before I say anything further, that my task in writing the book is to take away the fear of such terminology. Now I think he does that, and one of the reasons why he does that with this book is because it is now much less encumbered with lots of terminology, so you can get to the actual heart of some of the issues which form modern English land law. Now what you've got here is you've got a good introduction to set the bigger picture, and it's readable. That's another thing. Remember, you've got things like registered land, you've got things like legal and equitable interests, all of these words that you have to get some familiarity with. Then you have some of the case law, and there's quite a bit of case law again. Then you've got actually rather useful exam preparation, writing essays and dealing with problem questions. Again, right at the heart of this, because the problem questions are where you get the higher marks, and in land law in particular, you really have got to know how to answer some of the problem questions. Then you get into part 1, and then again you've got a nice little diagram, and it runs all the way through like that. You've got a good index at the back, so you can find things quite easily, and you've got a glossary, which you've got to have for land law. And then in addition to that, you've got a whole range of things. Core cases and statutes. Again, I think that's extremely well set out. And then you've got a lot of diagrams and so forth. Well, I think I've probably run through what's in the book itself. And let me talk to you about the blueprints series itself, because this is a series which I have found, as someone who is a law teacher and lecturer as well as a practitioner, as a barrister at law, I've found the Blueprints series, I think, to be one of the best for the 21st century student. Because any course of study for land law, real property in other words, can be easy or hard depending on whether you like the subject and understand both the British political and legal systems. Because you've got to have some understanding of the history. When I actually studied land law, which is a very long time ago now, when I first encountered it in the early 70s, it was a very different subject, the way it was actually presented in the textbooks at the time. The textbooks weren't easy to read. I found them very difficult. I found the subject matter very confusing. And it's only in recent years, in the recent decades, that we've now got a much better method of explaining some of the very basic areas that we need to look at. Things like easements, covenants, co-ownership and so on. Teaching the subject, of course, has often caused some problems for both the tutor and the student, mainly from certainly overseas learners who may not be that familiar with our system in the United Kingdom, and they may find the jurisdiction a bit strange. So enter the Pearson Blueprints series, and this particular book by Elliot Schatzberger, which he's brought together the very useful learning programs in the 4 parts that he's structured the book with. The Pearson mission, remember, is to help people make more of their lives through learning, and the way they achieve this aim is to combine innovative learning technology with trusted content and educational expertise. And the end product then is what they describe as providing engaging and effective learning experiences that serve people wherever and whenever they are learning. They do that. I know that some of the words they use again are quite interesting, but they actually succeed in teaching the subject, getting the information across, because land law has a reputation for being difficult, and it can be complex, and some of the cases and the factual content of the cases can be, at the beginning, really quite difficult to follow. So for those of you who are new to the Blueprints guides, they're visually designed to assist the acquisition of information, giving answers to the most asked questions, including things like what is the law and how is it applied, what problems does the law attempt to solve, what do we think about the law, how has the law become this way, what factors are shaping the law today, and so on. A lot of this stuff, of course, is obviously in the book, and it's trying to help you as the student understand this subject. Obviously the answers, as I say, are set out very clearly, and as Schatzberger says, this area of law is often viewed with apprehension, as I've mentioned, but it's not a prerequisite to have expertise in history or anything else. And the beauty of the book, I think, is that you will find all you need as an undergraduate here in terms of the basic content, so you can then go on afterwards and then cross-refer to relevant statutes and cases. It's an exciting time to see changes taking place, because obviously the Blueprint series is designed to create the indispensable building blocks of the subject, which will give you, the reader, an idea of how the various bits of the individual areas of law fit in to the system of modern English land law. Let me just go again through this and just go to the actual contents. You can see what you've got. You've got a piece of history at the beginning, because you have to have some concept of land ownership and how actually what we mean by land ownership right at the beginning. Obviously you have legislation like the Law of Property Act itself. You've then got rights, interests and their protection, and the Land Registration Act 2002, which is an important piece of legislation. Trusts of land and joint ownership, again very important, and then things like proprietary estoppel right at the end in part 4, and the interesting subjects such as easements, covenants and mortgages. Easements, covenants and mortgages. Now can I just say that those areas are actually some of the most interesting parts of land law. So once you've got through the difficult bits right at the beginning, go on to those sections, because you've got some very interesting case law, some very interesting human relationships and activities, obviously in terms of co-ownership and all the other things, mortgages, particularly covenants, easements. They're beautiful subjects to teach, but at the same time they are really rather nice when you read the case law. And also, if you understand the basic principles of proprietary rights and all the other words that they use, and can actually put it down in writing and express yourself well in English, you will with the problems, because the problem questions aren't that difficult actually. Once you've looked at them a few times, you'll see the same sorts of problems actually sort of recur. So what you can do is score very high marks. I'd like to thank the author, and certainly Elliot Schatzberger has produced an excellent book here. Pearson has been congratulated as well for the Blueprint series, which I believe is a very innovative step forward in the teaching of these more difficult subjects. And I wish you all the best of success with your exams. Thank you very much indeed, though, for producing this excellent new blueprint as part of their new series. Thank you. Bye-bye.